What's going on, everybody? Top 10 Pokemon back. And folks, I have probably the most expensive auction recap we have ever done on this channel across all auction platforms. I'm talking eBay, PWCC, Heritage, Golden, all had tremendously huge sales. So much so that I think I'm going to have a pretty long video for you today. So I hope you got a good attention span and that you stick around till the very end. I'm talking 5-figure and 6-figure trophy cards that came by, including a Pikachu Illustrator card, multiple first edition PSA 10 base set Charizards. That's right, more than one this week sold. Just so much to go through. Before we jump into this recap, a very quick shout out to today's auction recap sponsor. It's the great people over at KantoShark.com. After the recap, please go over to KantoShark.com and check out the awesome supply they have of vintage, modern, and Japanese graded cards for sale, as well as some fantastic deals on some sealed product, including these sealed base set booster packs for only $325. And to any of you who collect sealed Japanese product, there is quite a selection for you there as well. So go visit KantoShark.com and see what they have available for you to pick up today. Alright folks, let's jump into this recap. Believe me, your head is going to be spinning when you're done watching this recap because there were so many insane grails that came by. Let's start on eBay with this Dialga EX from Plasma Blast. You don't see a lot of full art EX cards come by in auction, let alone in PSA 10. This one here sold for $1,006. And then here we have the Nintendo era Ancient Mew promo card, as a PSA 10 sold for $1,025. And then here we have 3 base set Shadowless blister packs that sold for $5.50. Woo! Boy, that's some pricey shipping. From Fossil, we saw a first edition Gengar Holo in CGC 10 pristine condition sell for $3,225. From Legendary Collection, we saw 2 big hitters. One was this Venusaur Reverse Holo in PSA 10 that sold for $1,825. And then the Reverse Holo Charizard in CGC 10 sold for $7,600 this week. Here we have a CGC 10 first edition Umbreon from Neo Discovery that sold for $2,085. And then from Expedition, we saw this beautiful Mew Holo that sold as a PSA 10 for an even $6,000. And then a couple of crazy, awesome Japanese cards came by. Here's a BGS 10 20th anniversary Here Comes Team Rocket full art trainer card that sold for $9,850 big ones. Along with this BGS 10 Black Label Pretend Grunt Pikachu promo card that sold for $8,600. And then this Black Label Rayquaza poncho wearing Pikachu that sold for $19,600. Oh man! And then onto the PWCC weekly and monthly auction block, we have this altered, authentic, no rarity symbol base set Charizard that was graded by CGC. I guess it was graded authentically altered, or altered and authentic, whatever, sold for $630. And it seems like to me, if whoever altered this would have just left it alone and graded it, it probably would have went for a whole lot more. What do you think? Because $630 is not a lot for a no rarity symbol base set Charizard. We saw a couple of the legendary birds. Here's a first edition Moltres from Fossil that sold for $1,200 as a PSA 10, along with this first edition Articuno that sold for $2,520 this week. And then we saw several of the Topps Chrome Pokemon cards, the Sparkle, the Techno, the Spectras. Here is a Sparkle Eevee card in PSA 10 that sold for $2,880. Here is a Spectra Charizard in PSA 10 that sold for $2,070. Here is a Techno Moltres that sold for $2,280. And as I said before, these Techno cards are very low pop. Here we have a Techno Mewtwo that sold for $3,720. A Techno Jolteon that sold for $4,200. And then lastly, we saw the Techno Zapdos that sold for $4,920 as a PSA 10. And then here we saw another reverse holo Venusaur from Legendary Collection. However, this one sold for a lot less than the one on eBay, selling this week for $1,230, whereas the one on eBay was like $1,800. So somebody might have got a good deal on here for this Venusaur. And then we saw the reverse holo Dark Blastoise, also from Legendary Collection, sell for $2,520. Here is a shadowless base set Blastoise in PSA 10 that sold for $5,640. And then we saw numerous, and I mean numerous, Japanese promo cards on all the auction platforms. Here is a 2006 Battle Road Championship Arena card in PSA 10, sold for $6,600. Here we have a BGS 7.5 Tropical Mega Battle Win promo card that sold for $7,500. And then here is another PSA 10 Masaki Gengar promo card that sold for $10,500 this week. And then here we have a Japanese Gold Star Flareon 30,000 point promo card that sold as a PSA 10 for $11,700. And then getting into some auctions on Heritage, we saw this CGC 10 First Edition Slowking Holo from Neo Genesis that sold for $656. And the reason I put this on the recap is because last year, people were going bananas over this card whenever CGC decided to put a 10 on their labels. Used to sell for like over $2,000. Nowadays sells for about $656, and in my opinion is still way too much for this card. We also saw a CGC 10 First Edition Lugia that sold for an even $6,000. Up next, we saw the CGC 10 Gem Mint First Edition Base Set Zard that sold this week for $37,500. And then here we have a CGC 10 Perfect Japanese Holo Charizard from Base Set that sold for $8,125. And this is not the no rarity symbol version. I believe like a PSA 10 copy of this card typically sells between $3,000 and $4,000, so you're talking double the price for a CGC 10 Perfect. Here we have a CGC 10 Japanese Top Sun No Number Charizard card that sold for $23,750. And then we saw numerous Japanese prize cards, trophy cards, whatever you want to call them. Here is a BGS 10 Gloomy Art Academy winner prize card that sold for $8,750 this week. Here we have an XY 20th Anniversary Festa Pikachu card that sold for $9,375. Here we have a second place Victory Ring Lizardon Mega Battle prize card that sold as a CGC 10 for $11,875, along with this 2022 Victory Proof Champions League second place prize card that sold for $13,750. Here we have a CGC 9.5 number 3 Trainer Spring Battle Road promo card that sold for $15,000, along with this CGC 10 number 2 Spring Battle Road Trainer card that sold for $17,500. Here we have a 2005 Victory Orb Mew Summer Battle Road promo card that sold for $16,250 as a PSA 10. And then we have this Espeon Daisuke Club 7,200 point promo card in PSA 10 that sold for $16,250. And then right next to that was the Umbreon Daisuke Club 7,200 point promo card that sold for $32,500. Here we have a PSA 8 Lucky Stadium Tropical Mega Battle promo card that sold for $18,750 this week. And then here is a 2017 World's Championship number 3 Trainer Trophy card that sold as a PSA 9 for $42,500. And then one more trainer card. It was this 2010 World's Championships number 2 Trainer Trophy card that sold as a PSA 8 for $45,000. Up next, we saw two of the very elusive cards from the Pokemon Stadium Best Photo Contest winners. These are unnumbered promos. Here is a CGC 9 Coughing that sold for $27,500, while this CGC 9 Chansey sold for $47,500. And a quick summary, the winners of this contest got their snap, if you will, on a Pokemon card, and a very limited amount was distributed to the winner. So these cards in and of themselves are extremely rare. Up next, we saw all three of the legendary birds from the Tropical Mega Battle promo phone cards. We saw the PSA 10 Moltres and Zapdos both sell each for $7,812, and then the PSA 10 Articuno sold for $8,750. And then we saw a lineup of sealed booster boxes on both Heritage and Golden auctions. Here is a sealed Diamond and Pearl Stormfront box that sold for $6,875. A first edition Fossil box that sold for $10,370, while the first edition Jungle box sold for $10,492. Here we have a Japanese Neo Discovery booster box, or Crossing the Ruins box, that sold for $12,505. And then we saw this first edition Neo Revelation booster box sell for $25,010. Here is a first edition Team Rocket booster box sold for $15,860. And then we saw a first edition Neo Genesis box on Heritage sell for $23,125. Along with this first edition Neo Destiny box that sold for $37,500. Up next, we saw a lineup of base set booster boxes. Here's an unlimited base set box sold for an even $15,000. Here is what looks to be a very loosely wrapped first edition Spanish base set box that sold for $12,500. And here's a first edition German base set box that sold for $15,625. And then lastly, we have the first edition English base set booster box that sold for $200,000 this week. We saw a couple more of the Topps Chrome Techno cards on Golden come by. Here's another Jolteon in PSA 10 that sold for $4,179. Here is a Techno Pikachu card that sold for $3,996. A Techno Vaporeon that sold for $5,490. And then the Techno Charizard in PSA 10 sold for $21,973. Here we have a Trainer Deck A Machamp card. This is a non-holo version from Trainer Deck A that in PSA 10 sold for $7,320. Here is a CGC10 Shadowless base set Charizard on Golden that sold for $8,054. And then here we have a PSA 9 no rarity symbol Japanese base set Charizard that was autographed. Although I don't believe the autograph was graded. I think it was just the case itself was signed. But this card sold for $25,214. Here's something very interesting. It is a Topps Pokemon, the first movie appearance uncut sheet that sold for $8,357. And this, of course, has that very elusive Lugia on it that people pay quite a premium for because it's very difficult to grade, I believe. And then we saw this Japanese base set uncut sheet that sold for $25,620. And then a couple of more Japanese promo cards. Here's a 2014 Battle Festa Victory Battle Gym Mix Holofoil card that sold for $9,455 as a PSA 10. And then here we have the Big Bad Trophy Kangaskhan in PSA 8 that sold for $47,580. And then here is all three of the legendary Bird Phone cards that sold, all PSA 10s that sold for $59,780. And we're going to finish off this recap with the PWCC monthly premiere auctions. Quite a bit of gold came by. Here's a first edition PSA 10 base set Blastoise sold for $20,400. Here is the complete base set unlimited collection, all graded PSA 10, all 202 cards, sold for $21,600. Here we have an Espeon Gold Star Japanese Play promo card. This is the 50,000 point card, sold as a PSA 10 for a whopping $66,000. And then we saw this PSA 10 Japanese Gold Star Umbreon, which is a 70,000 point promo card that sold for $180,000. Whoo! And then here we have a PSA 10 Chansey from the Japanese 25th anniversary corporate history deck that sold for $51,600. And then from Golden Auctions, we saw this first edition PSA 10 base set Charizard come by. It sold for $195,200. And then back to the PWCC monthly premiere auction, we saw another copy sell for $168,000. Which leads me to the auction of the week. It's got to go to this PSA 8 Pikachu Illustrator card that sold on Golden Auctions this week for $317,200. Whew. How many millions was that? Too many to count, folks. That was quite a recap. So much money being spent on shiny cardboard. Let me know what you thought of the recap. Please comment below. I always look forward to hearing from you. And don't forget to go check out kantoshark.com, see what they have for you on there. That's all I got today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it more than you know. And I'll catch you all in my next one.